Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And I think we're waiting for Anushka to come in. So thank you again. I'm so excited to be presenting at the APDA Virtual Parkinson's Conference. I hope you're all having such a wonderful day. Please feel free to use the chat and talk with us. And Anushka and I are so happy to be here with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anushka Sheel, and I'm the National Director of Programs and Services at APDA. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this session entitled Facilitating Conversations, Exploring Communication Aids for Parkinson's. Our special guest is Alexandria Russell. And Alexandria, a speech-language pathologist and caregiver to her dad with Parkinson's, creates resources, webinars, and support groups for Lingraphica, a company that helps people with speech and language impairments improve their communication, speech, and quality of life. Alexandria, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anushka. I really appreciate the introduction. And again, I'm just really looking forward to presenting with you all. And if any questions pop up, please feel free to ask. Today, I'm talking about facilitating conversations, exploring communication aids for Parkinson's. So here's what you can expect today. We are in the introduction now, but we're going to talk about what is AAC. We're going to review some resources and Q&A at the end, but we're also going to go over some common communication barriers that you might be experiencing as a person with Parkinson's or a care partner or even healthcare provider or allied health professional. And then we'll review some caregiver and therapy tips to help support communication for those living with Parkinson's. So just a little bit about me. Thank you, Anushka, for that wonderful introduction. You can call me Alex. I am a medical speech language pathologist, as well as the consumer ed specialist at Lingraphica. I live in Philadelphia. Go Birds. We just come off a really nice Super Bowl win. I went to undergrad at Loyola in Baltimore and finished my master's degree at Towson. I've worked with solely the adult and senior population for the last 12 years of my career. I've worked in a variety of settings, from nursing homes to outpatient private practice, teletherapy. I am the daughter and caregiver of a dad with Parkinson's, as well as Parkinson's dementia. So I'm very familiar with the struggle that some of you might be living with, as well as navigating the healthcare system. So I understand and I see you. I was recently named an ASHA Innovator by the American Speech Language Hearing Association and have been featured in the Lingraphica documentary, Witnessing Their Words. So again, thank you for having me, everyone. By the end of today's session, you'll be able to define what AAC is and distinguish between low-tech and high-tech AAC solutions. You'll also be able to recognize common communication challenges and breakdowns that are faced by individuals living with Parkinson's. And you'll also gain valuable tips for caregivers and speech therapy must-dos to effectively support those individuals who are using AAC. Some important reminders as we go through today's session. While I am a speech language pathologist, I am not your speech language pathologist, so I cannot provide you with direct therapeutic or medical advice. But please know everything we discuss today is going to go over general information, practices, and tips that you can apply to your loved one or you personally and your journey. Please feel free to take pictures of the slides or the notes. And do know this session is being recorded. So you will have access to it when it ends if you missed anything or you want to go back to a particular slide. And please know that this is a safe space to learn and connect. No question is silly if you are thinking it, so is someone else. So please submit your questions in the Q&A box next to the live chat. A little poll to get us started. I would love to know, how long have you been living with Parkinson's? Like I said, my dad has Parkinson's. I've been helping him and my mom as a caregiver on that journey. And he's been living with it since I've been in college. And I'm a little bit older now, I will say. It's been about 10, 12 years since his diagnosis. So we've been navigating this for a long time. So I would love to know, how long have you been living with Parkinson's? Alrighty, so let's go over some common communication barriers. As you know, if you are living with Parkinson's and you have been struggling maybe with your speech or voice, Adapting to life with a speech or voice impairment can be difficult, right? It can be hard when people maybe don't truly understand what you're saying. Um, and they keep asking you, huh? What? Say it again, right? It's frustrating. And especially when people don't know that a speech or voice impairment can be due to your Parkinson's. So I know adapting to this can be really difficult. And we know that Parkinson's disease can affect many things, right? It can affect your cognition, it can affect your voice, your speech, your swallowing, as well as movement, right? Is a movement disorder. We also know that Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disorder, right? And what does that mean? It is a brain condition that will worsen over time. It is progressive and it affects the dopamine. We're going to get a little sciencey. It affects the dopamine producing neurons in a specific area of your brain. Okay. And that's located in the basal ganglia. And why do I bring this up? Because that specific part of the brain that's affecting those neurons, that dopamine producing neurons, okay, that part of the brain is responsible for motor movement, cognitive functions, and emotions. All right. Let's go over the common communication challenges in Parkinson's. And you'll see a few here on your screen, right? And according to most research, between 75% and 90% of people with Parkinson's disease will experience a noticeable change in their speech and voice. And like I said before, right, Parkinson's is progressive. So we know speech and voice can worsen over time. Let's go over the first diagnosis here that you see on your slide, or first speech or voice impairment, and that is dysarthria. What is dysarthria? If you've not heard of it before, dysarthria is a very common speech challenge seen in people with Parkinson's. It is a speech disorder. It most often is referred to as slurred speech. And a person with dysarthria has the language to speak, but they're often difficult to understand due to muscle weakness or paralysis. Okay, it can range from mild to severe. And for some people, the severity can also be dependent on things like fatigue, medication, time of day. Speech can also be faster or at a slower rate than usual, at a lower volume, or it may have an atypical rhythm. The next communication challenge on here is hypophonia or dysphonia. This is a condition characterized by difficulty producing vocal sounds. Okay, dysphonia can manifest as a hoarse, weak, breathy voice. Okay, it also, particularly for people in Parkinson's, right, that hypophonia, the voice can be very low, very hard to understand, a low volume, right? Next up here, we have a masked face. All right. I don't know about you if you're living with Parkinson's or care partners, but my dad has a masked face. And what does that look like? Right? No facial expression or reduced or limited facial expression, which might impact your communication, right? Someone would say, well, hey, Alex, you look really upset today. Are you mad at me? How come you're not reacting to my exciting news? Or how come you're not reacting to my sad news, right? We have to remember that people with Parkinson's may be living with a masked face. The other communication challenge I have on here is micrographia. So if you're someone whose writing is still intact, you love to write, but maybe you're noticing those letters are getting tinier and tinier and smaller, and that's micrographia. The next one here are cognitive changes. So in some people with Parkinson's, the cognitive changes are mild. In others, however, cognitive deficits may become more severe and might impact your day-to-day functioning. Research also shows that around 20 to 50% of people with Parkinson's will experience a mild cognitive impairment, but it's important to know that not all people with a cognitive impairment will lead to a dementia diagnosis. Okay, I always say talk to your doctor, talk to a neurologist, talk to a speech therapist. All right, so those same brain changes that lead to motor symptoms can also result in slowness in memory and thinking, right, which can impact your communication. Those cognitive changes can also look like distraction, disorganization, poor short-term memory, poor attention, overwhelmed making choices, trouble finding the right words to speak, right? Or difficulty planning and difficulty accomplishing tasks. So all of these can manifest in people with Parkinson's and also further impact communication. Let's talk about AAC. Have you heard of it before? Is this a new word? So this is what AAC stands for. And this is why we use the acronym AAC, because it is a long word. It's a little bit of a mouthful, right? Augmentative and alternative communication. And that's what we're here to talk about. These communication aids and how to facilitate conversation. So AAC, or augmentative and alternative communication, refers to tools, strategies, or technology that help someone with a speech or language impairment to communicate. So let's go over some different types of AAC. And you can share with me in the chat how you feel about using alternative methods, right? So maybe you can share an emoji in the chat or a word, a phrase, a sentence, but like, how are we feeling about using alternative methods? You know, I primarily work with seniors, so sometimes they're a little hesitant. They'll say, well, Alex, I'm not tech savvy. And I say, well, me either. So you will be okay, I promise. All right, so we're going to talk about some different types of AAC. We're going to talk about low-tech AAC, and we're going to talk about high-tech AAC. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to see some examples of low-tech. All right, what does low-tech look like? These are often paper-based methods to help someone with a speech or language impairment to communicate. So if you've pointed out a picture on a piece of paper, if you've written something down, congratulations, you have already used low-tech AAC. All right, but what are you seeing on your screen right now? You're looking at communication boards here, okay? Now, communication boards include preset words, preset phrases, or pictures that you can point to. All right. You also see an alphabet or a letter board here, which can help guide conversation by spelling words, maybe indicating the first letter of the word you're trying to say. You'll also see pictures here. This is a pain scale, a picture version of a pain scale, a wonderful tool to use or bring to that doctor's appointment or any other allied health professional. And then here we have good old-fashioned pen and paper, right? Very useful for writing down keywords or drawing concepts, okay? Then on the right-hand side of the screen, we have high-tech AAC, all right? And high-tech AAC is going to often refer to electronic-based methods of communication or digital-based methods of communication. And so I put 3 examples here on the screen for you. You have a speech generating device, also referred to as a communication device or high-tech AAC. You might see it used interchangeably, okay? But this is an example of a high-tech speech generating device. And this is a tablet or a computer that's going to help someone communicate. It uses a combination of pictures, words, and spoken language. All right. You'll also see here some apps. Okay. Apps are also a version of high-tech AAC. There are text-to-speech apps. So for people who are better at writing than speaking, right, you can write it down and it'll speak for you. There are speech-to-text apps, converting spoken language into written words, right? There are communication apps, whiteboard apps. Also, texting and emailing, social media are additional apps that you can use to still express yourself. The other example of high-tech AAC that I have here for you on the bottom is a voice amplifier. And these are portable devices that help to amplify your vocal output. So this can help individuals with Parkinson's, specifically those with that hypophonia, remember that term, or reduced vocal volume. And this can help you to be heard more clearly. These devices are really helpful in noisy environments, or if you're like me, you got a big, loud family, okay? Or during group conversations, or especially when you're speaking for an extended amount of time. All right, so let's take a look at this communication board, and let's talk about some pros and cons, all right? Pros, communication boards, low commitment, easy, inexpensive to make. They are fast, ideal when you need a way to communicate immediately. It's a great way also to kind of get your feet wet and introduce the idea of a communication device if you're not quite sure yet. So it might be good for people who are not yet comfortable with technology, but still want to use a method of communication. All right. But there are some cons to using a communication board. There is no voice output. So you must have a communication partner, or you must have someone there to interpret your message. It is a little bit limited in scope. As you can see, this is a daily activities communication board. And that's it. What you see on this board is what you get, right? So it is difficult to add words or phrases on the spot. You could carry large or multiple boards with you, but depending on your physical ability or who you have around you, it might be cumbersome to carry around multiple boards, okay? And depending how you customize your communication board and how many you have, a communication board may not be the best long-term comprehensive communication system. Okay, so that's the pros and cons of a communication board. Let's talk about a speech generating device. All right, what you're seeing here on the screen. And these are some screenshots on the right-hand side of a Lingraphica AAC device, or speech generating device, again, communication device. Please know you might hear those terms interchangeably. So a speech generating device is designed for individuals with communication challenges, right? We talked about hypophonia, dysarthria, micrographia, cognitive changes. There are a lot of communication challenges that someone with Parkinson's might be living with. And so using a speech generating device is such a wonderful tool to help you still be able to maintain your independence and express yourself. So again, these are screenshots of a Lingraphica device, and our systems feature cards, folders, which are going to combine images, written text, and spoken word. As you can see, they feature real pictures as well as realistic drawings, which are the easiest for people. Aphasia there, that is a term for loss of language or difficulty finding your words. So if someone with Parkinson's has difficulty finding their words or using language, then this is a wonderful tool to use. And because the system is picture-based, it's still easy to use even if you have trouble reading or writing. And I'm going to say that again. This system is picture-based, so it's still easy to use even if you have trouble reading or writing. Okay, here is an example, another screenshot of a specific page in a communication device here. And again, this is a screenshot of a Lingraphica device. All right. I don't know if any of you out there like to travel, or you've traveled in the past, or maybe you just have stories that you like to tell, stories about family members, past events, your favorite foods, your recipes, right? Using a speech generating device will allow you to store all of those wonderful stories and sayings. And so you can see here, for an example, on your screen, some of these sentences that this person has programmed in their device. Where do you recommend for drinks? Where's the nearest gas station? Are there places to hike nearby? What's your favorite coffee shop here? What restaurants would you recommend? And, oh, will you write that down for me? Right? So imagine you're traveling, you have Parkinson's. Maybe it's not the best day for your speech or your voice. So you have your communication device with you as you're traveling around to ask other people these questions, okay? Or family members, whoever you're with. All right. So a good candidate for someone to use this device, we want to know that you have a moderate or moderate severe speech or language impairment. All right. That you have the physical ability to access your device or use any accessories. So maybe you need a weighted stylus, right? Sometimes people with Parkinson's have a tremor. So using a weighted stylus will help you access that screen a little bit better. Or maybe you need a mount, a wheelchair mount, or maybe you need a mount that's going to go on the table or the floor so you can use it in your bedroom, kitchen, living room, wherever. All right. We also want to be motivated. That's a great factor in using a communication device or anything that you're doing on your Parkinson's journey, right? Motivation is important because when you're intrinsically motivated, you're going to be more likely to consistently use your device, right? And use it with others. And despite many AAC myths out there, I want you to know that there are no specific prerequisite skills or requirements that you must meet. Okay. Even if you have language or cognitive impairments, these devices here are meant to be simple, especially for those who've never used technology before. All right. So know that traditional therapy and AAC can work together to maximize your communication as well as your recovery. And so let's review, right? AAC can help slurred speech or unintelligible speech, low voice or no voice. We talked about that. Hypophonia, right? Difficulty finding words or using language could look like aphasia. All right. And again, up at the top, that slurred speech might also be referred to as dysarthria. And what are the benefits of using AAC? Increase independence, the ability to participate in day-to-day life, fewer communication breakdowns, right? Fewer, huh? What'd you say? Say it again. I couldn't hear you, right? Fewer of those, and a better connection with your community, with your family, with your friends. All right, so let's go over some tips for supporting communication. So, for all of my caregivers out there, all right, and even my speech therapists who might be watching, be patient, patient on both sides. All right. Allow the person to communicate. Try not to rush or finish their sentences and encourage them to take their time. All right. Secondly, encourage AAC use. There's no need for both sides to be struggling. If there is a tool you can use to make communication smoother, please use it. Use pen and paper, use the voice amplifier, whip out your communication board or a device. All right. Gently remind and encourage your loved one, hey, let's use this device. All right. That also means care partners and providers, you have to familiarize yourself with AAC. Know what your clients and your loved ones are using, how to charge it, how to customize it, right? Make sure that AAC is accessible. So it's not hidden in a drawer upstairs on the third floor that your loved one can't get to, right? It should be out and accessible. Be mindful of background noise and distraction. I saw a lot of questions in the chat already that were answered, but there were some great questions about how do I have effective conversation with my loved one? How can I make sure my loved one with PD hears me? Be mindful of that background noise, and also please be mindful of any distractions in the environment or volume-wise. Okay, be attentive, be observant, repeat if you need to, clarify if you need to. Can you say that again? Is this what you said? Am I understanding you right? All right, so let's go over some resources, and then I'm going to answer some questions that I see went through the Q&A here. As we share some resources, I want you all to know, one, you're already here. Community matters. This is wonderful. So to be here, to feel supported, right? Sharing your experiences, learning from others, all of that helps you feel less alone. And I know myself, joining a community for caregivers, adult kids of people with Parkinson's has been so valuable for me being a caregiver. So please, community matters. I'm sharing a resource with you, the Lingraphica community for Parkinson's. All right, feel free to scan that QR code, but this is free. It's online meetups for people with Parkinson's and their caregivers. We host sessions Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. I'm hosting a session later today, but it's just a wonderful way to widen your Parkinson's community, your care partner community, and to ask questions, again, in a non-judgmental, safe space. Okay. We have the Parkinson's toolkit here. All right. This is also from Lingraphica. Get all the helpful tips and tricks you need to navigate communication challenges. So we have a communication ID card, which will let people know you have Parkinson's. We'll have those low-tech communication boards for you. All right. And also a flyer on the Lingraphica community. Lastly, if you want to schedule a free consultation, you can scan this QR code here for a communication device. You're like, hey, that sounds good. But is it for me and my loved one? Go on and schedule a free consultation, and we would love to chat with you. I'm going to leave this QR code up while I answer a few questions here. When working in a gym or fitness class that is inherently noisy, how can I better communicate with a client participant who's hard to understand without making them feel self-conscious? Great question. I would recommend either before or after class, bringing that person to you and having a conversation, asking them what they feel need to be supported, maybe suggesting that they come to the front of the class and maybe off to the side so they can hear better. If it's possible, as a fitness instructor, giving that person the exercises before class so they can practice or at least read through them. And also, if there are any visual or written cues that you can provide that person with Parkinson's. All right, let's go to the next slide here. Oh, thank you. There we go. Thank you and questions. I'm going to answer another question that I see here, and we have just about 4 minutes left. So the last question I see here, and Anushka, you'll let me know if we have any more questions, is how do I communicate with my adult children who don't want to face the facts about my diagnosis? One, thank you for asking this and being transparent and honest with us. Living with this new diagnosis can be so hard, right? Not only for you, but for the loved ones in your family. And accepting a diagnosis, there's nothing that we can do to make someone accept that, right? You can lead a horse to water. But what I would say is doing this together as a family, things like inviting your loved ones to webinars like this, going to support groups together, but inviting your loved ones to join support groups for care partners. Like I said, I'm an adult child of someone with Parkinson's, and I go to a specific support group for that. So making sure that your care partners are also getting support and they are learning as much as they can about the diagnosis, going to doctor's visits with you or going over the visits after, reading your visit summaries. It's hard. It's hard to, shake them and say, hey, I've got Parkinson's. You got to accept this, right? That journey, it looks different for everyone. But I think the more you can include and invite them, I'm hoping that helps with their acceptance. And thank you for that question.
Alex, thank you so much for sharing your unique blend of personal and professional expertise with us. We have several more questions that have come in from our audience. It seems clear that this topic has really struck a note with people. So one question is, someone has asked, how expensive are high-tech communication devices?
Great question. I cannot speak for all high-tech devices. I can speak for the devices here at Lingraphica. Our devices are covered by Medicare, Medicaid, the VA, and some private insurances. And we do offer financial assistance for any potential out-of-pocket expenses. So I would say the best thing for you to do would be able to schedule a consultation with Lingraphica. Give us your insurance information. We will run a benefit check and tell you if you have any out-of-pocket expenses or if your device is covered by insurance.
Thank you. And this is a similar question about AAC, but someone has asked, is there a specific voice amplifier that you can suggest?
I wouldn't say there's a specific one. I would say your best bet would be to go to your favorite store, whatever that might be, Walmart, look online, Google voice amplifier. And I would say the one thing you need to look for is the type of microphone. There are two types of mics that you can use with a voice amplifier. And I would say this would be dependent on you or your loved one with Parkinson's and their mobility and physical capabilities. There is a lapel mic, which you can attach to a collar. There is also a collar mic, which kind of goes around the neck like a necklace. So I would just say, look at the type of microphone that comes with that voice amplifier. I would also recommend a speech therapy consult. Your speech therapist can help you find one that's going to be compliant or consistent with your specific needs or what your loved one needs.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think that we were so lucky to have you with us today. So thank you so much for making the time to join us and to share your experience with this really relevant topic with our community. That is all the questions we have time for today. And if you posted a question in the Q&A section that didn't get answered, I know that Alex has been active in the Q&A section answering your questions. So if we didn't answer them on camera, Alex will be able to answer them for you in Whova. So watch this space. And again, thank you so much for being here, Alex. And thank you to all of you who joined from home. I hope that you enjoyed the quick break we have coming up, but don't go far. We'll be back in 10 minutes to begin our next set of breakout sessions. We have a lot of great options available, so take a look at the agenda now and decide what section you want to join next. See you soon.